You are watching EAC News. Thanks for joining us. Now for a look at news making international headlines this Wednesday, 8th of December.
Firefighters hampered by high winds in operation to douse a stricken ship carrying timber off Gothernburg on Sweden's west coast. The fire has started on Saturday and was still not under control and continues to burn for more than 4 days. The Swedish Civil Contingencies Agency have reported it had sent 2 helicopters while several other authorities and organizations continues fighting the fire. Firefighting efforts using 2 large Swedish Coast Guard ships along with private tugs hired by the ship owners continues. Although the fire continues to burn with undiminished strength, the flames are reported to be contained to the forward portion of the ship and limited to the timber cargo and not the ship itself. The work would continue for several days. The crew of the Almirante Storni remain on board, and there is now discussion about whether or not to try and take the bunker fuel from the stricken vessel. The 9-year-old 31,796 deadweight ton handy-box carrier is managed by Germany's NSC and sails under the Liberian flag.
Iraqi military says a motorcycle rigged with explosives has caused a strong, massive blast, which killed at least 4 people and wounded dozens. The blast took place near a main hospital, setting fire to at least 1 vehicle and damaged a minibus. Bomb attacks in southern Iraq, where the bulk of the country's oil is produced, are relatively rare, particularly since the defeat of the ISIL armed group in 2017. There has been an increase in political instability in Iraq following the October 10 parliament elections, which saw populist leader Muqtada al-Sadr emerge as the biggest winner. Shia armed factions loyal to Iran, which lost around 2/3 of their parliamentary seats, have rejected the results of the election, alleging fraud.
UK commits almost $400 million to put a stop on drugs trade and to tackle drug gangs and boast rehabilitation for users, Prime Minister Boris Johnson has announced Monday at a police raid. The government has promised the largest ever investment in drug treatment and recovery as part of a far-reaching new 10-year strategy for tackling addiction and reducing crime in England. The cross-department plan comes as drug-related deaths in England and the rest of the UK have reached a record high in 2020, with deaths linked to cocaine and opiates rising sharply over the past decade. The strategy will be underpinned by almost $1 billion investment in treatment programs in the National Health Service and in the prison service, taking the total treatment and recovery spent to almost $3 billion over 3 years. There will be also more than $300 million investment to crack down on supply chains in criminal gangs profiting from the trade in illegal drugs.
I take the view that it's a long time really since you've heard a government say that drugs, Class A drugs, are bad and bad for society, bad for opportunity, bad for kids growing up in this country. That's my view, and I think it's something that we can tackle and we can deal with. You've got to be realistic. You've got to be humane. You've got to be compassionate. You've got to recognise that overwhelmingly the problem is caused by 300,000 people whose lives are simply chaotic, who are torn apart by their own addiction. You've got to help them. You've got to do rehab, but you've also got to come down very, very hard on the county lines gangs, and that's what we're doing.
Johnson believes that the strategy would tackle 300,000 problem drug users who account for about half of burglaries, robberies, thefts, and murders. The investment will see a crackdown on drugs gangs with an aim to dismantle 2,000 so-called country lines, networks used to drive the drug trades in rural areas of the country. The measures make part of the government's 10-year drugs strategy published on Monday, designed to address both the supply and demand for drugs.